Hello, my name's Geoff, and I'm a member of the church family here at Holy Trinity. At our 4:30 afternoon service, we often include an item which we call Couldn't Help Noticing. In it, we think about something which has caught our attention in the past week. Well, there can't be many of us who have not noticed the turmoil caused by this year's assessments, which have replaced A-level, GCSE and BTEC examinations. It's been headline news every day, reflecting the distress, anger and confusion, not only of students and their families, but also of teachers and university admissions officers. I think I'll leave it to others to wrangle over the blame game, which will no doubt continue for some time. But I think it's worth taking a few moments to consider some of the issues this has raised. Perhaps foremost is the question of fairness and consistency. Is there any system of assessment which can replace formal examinations and be both fair to each individual student, but also consistent across the whole cohort? If some teachers or schools are more generous in assessing their students, wouldn't that confer an unfair advantage on those students? Whether we like it or not, students are competing with one another for places in higher education or training or employment on the basis of the grades they get. So unfair advantage for some means unfair disadvantage for others. Whose judgments should we trust? Formal exams are meant to provide a level playing field by testing everyone in a controlled and standardized way. But that raises a different issue of fairness. What about those who just happen to perform below par on exam day, perhaps because of illness or family upset? Or what about those who never do well under the stress of exam conditions? Wouldn't a system of continuous assessment be a fairer way of measuring their ability and overall performance? Well, I don't have a simple answer to these questions, and I'm not sure that anyone else has either. Yet issues like these arise at other stages of life too. When you apply for a new job or for a promotion, the employer will consider your qualifications and experience. They'll want to decide whether you have the knowledge and skills to undertake this role, or at least the potential to develop them. And once in post, you're likely to be subject to ongoing or periodic review of your performance and development, your track record. It matters to us that these appraisals are carried out fairly and with full knowledge of all the relevant facts, since much may depend on the outcome. Well, as a different Geoff reminded us a few weeks ago, there is a final appraisal which awaits all of us when this life is done. And this is the most important one of all. It will assess how we've lived our lives and our fitness for what is to follow. Oh yes, it's very important to realize that there is a hereafter and that we'd better be prepared for it. The Apostle Paul was very clear about this when he told the citizens of Athens, "For he," that is God, "has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. He has given proof of this to all men by raising him from the dead. And likewise he wrote to the Christians in Corinth, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due to him for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. So what do these verses tell us? This assessment will be completely fair and consistent. We shall be judged with justice. Our judge will be the man appointed by God for the task. That is to say, Jesus Christ. He is the one man who has lived a perfect life, obedient and pleasing to God in every way. Death couldn't hold him, and God raised him to a new life which never ends. He is the one who will pass judgment on how we have lived our lives and assign the due rewards, whether good or bad. There'll be no mistakes and no appeals, nor indeed any need for them. It's a sobering thought. You see, what's at stake here is whether we are found to be fit to live forever in God's presence, or whether we shall be excluded from it. And the Bible has some very bad news for us before we can appreciate the good news. The bad news is summed up by some more words from Paul. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. None of us matches up to God's standard. In fact, we have fallen far short of it, which means that of ourselves, we are not fit to live in God's presence. So this is where the good news comes in, which we read in one of the best loved passages in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. Jesus is the Son of God who came into the world to live and die to save people like you and me. That means to rescue them from God's condemnation and punishment, so that they may live with him forever. You see, Jesus bore the penalty of other people's disobedience, so that they might gain the reward of his perfect obedience. It's as if he has taken the exam in our place, so that his perfect performance is credited to those who believe in him. We may not fully understand this, but the key thing is to place our trust in Jesus, to believe in him. If we fail to do this, then we stand condemned already. We have already failed the exam because all have sinned and fall short of God's standard. So now we know the basis on which we shall finally be judged. It is our response to Jesus during our lifetime here and now. The judgment which he will pronounce on us then depends on how we respond to him now. If you've not yet put your trust in Jesus, I urge you to do so without delay. And if you are a believer, then I urge you to try to live every day to please him, obeying his commands, just as he lived every day to please God, his Father in heaven.